I have pelvic organ prolapse. When I was first diagnosed with pelvic organ prolapse, it was actually at a physical therapy course, my very first physical therapy course. I had my first baby in 1999, and so I had some symptoms after birth. I had never even heard of pelvic organ prolapse at that point. I hadn't even really heard about the pelvic floor. I think I had heard the name Kegel before, but we didn't discuss any of this in physical therapy school. I graduated in 1995, so we've come a long ways since then. So basically, the way that I found out that I had pelvic organ prolapse initially was during that first course, and during these physical therapy training courses on the pelvic floor, we are each other's lab partners. And so we're learning how to test for prolapse and how to check the pelvic floor and lots of other great things in these courses. And so you take off your pants and you're the lab model. And so my partner was checking me because that morning we had gone over the education and the slides about what pelvic organ prolapse was. And during that, I was like, oh, I don't have that. That's only a very rare thing that, hardly anybody has. And of course, I'm not going to have that. Well, during the lab, my partner, was checking me and testing me, and, she's brand new too, so she's not feeling super confident in what she's seeing. So she calls the instructor over, and it was Holly Herman. And so she's like, Holly, look at this. And Holly was like, She said, do you mind if the others come and look? And so, okay, no, of course I don't mind. So then I have 30 something people kind of gathered around the table looking at my perineum and looking at my pelvic organ prolapse. So at that point, that was after baby number 1, I had a visible cystocele or anterior vaginal wall prolapse and a slightly visible rectocele, which is the posterior vaginal wall prolapse that we'll go into more in the course. At that point, I wasn't having any pressure or the sensation of the vaginal bulge. I went ahead and I went home and I worked on my pelvic floor muscle training, but more of my focus at that point in terms of prolapse was helping my patients and helping to improve their symptoms and so forth. But even prior to my first baby, I got to the point where I was symptom-free, no leaks, no pain, no pressure. Okay. Now, baby number 2 comes along 2 years after baby number 1, and immediately postpartum, I'm feeling a vaginal bulge. I'm feeling pressure. I didn't have any pain necessarily due to the prolapse, but I did have pressure, and I felt that vaginal bulge, and I saw that vaginal bulge. So I pulled out that mirror and I looked. And even though I knew cognitively, like, this is probably that pelvic organ prolapse peeking out, I still wanted confirmation. And at that point, I was the only pelvic health physical therapist within about 100 miles of where I lived. So I went to a pelvic health physical therapist in Houston by the name of Fatima, and she was amazing, and she reaffirmed what I was seeing, and she helped to set me up on a good home program and regimen. And so that was really the beginning of my symptomatic pelvic organ prolapse journey. And over the years, I've been able to, with pelvic floor muscle training and with some of the other strategies that we're going to talk about, I've been able to live the life that I want to live. So now it's almost 21 years later. I have pelvic organ prolapse. Are there days that I'm more symptomatic? Yes, sometimes I can still feel that vaginal bulge. But are there weeks that go by that I don't feel the vaginal bulge and I don't think about pelvic organ prolapse? Absolutely. So, it's a very cyclical journey. It can kind of go up and down. And as we're going to talk about in the course, symptoms can vary. But just understanding why the symptoms might be happening and what you can do to help address those symptoms is incredibly empowering. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about really weren't talked about way back when I first started. And so some of these things I've kind of self-taught myself we didn't learn it at a pelvic health physical therapy course back then. Now, I think more of these conservative alternatives and interventions are being shared as we're training our newer pelvic health physical therapists, which is great. But basically, I'm sharing my journey and I'm sharing the research. So this information is coming from a research standpoint, it's coming from a clinical experience standpoint, and then it's also coming from a personal experience standpoint. So if you have any questions about my specific journey or my specific strategies, I'm absolutely happy to share. So please connect with me. Thank you. This course has been 100% self-videoed. So I'm the videographer and I'm doing a lot of the video editing. A little peek behind the scenes here. So I'm going to show you where we are. So we're at my apartment here. Hopefully everything is clean and the way that I want you to see it. I use a lot of props and things. Something else that is kind of cool is that for all of the subtitles for this course, my daughter is the one that has helped to edit all those and to help make that happen. So she's a 19-year-old, she's in university, and she had some time over Christmas break to help me, and I'm really, really grateful for her help. And I love that she's getting all this information and knowledge about pelvic health and pelvic anatomy, and I think it's gonna be empowering for her as well to understand her anatomy. So that was a double win. I'll share a few other videos that I've taken throughout, but basically this was a completely DIY videography course. So some days you may see that I have different lighting. So if it was a very sunny day, well, I have all these windows and there they are. If it was a cloudy day, I might have had to add some extra light. So I hope that the course is professional enough for you. It was my first real try at doing all this videography on my own, and I'm excited about the product. Thank you for your support.